And the recipe calls is 3½ cups. And what I always like to do is I put all my dry ingredients together and all my wet ingredients together. A lot of times, even in my bread machine, I do the very, very same thing. So, and this is bread flour. I think it just has a little bit more gluten in it, and rice is a little nicer. Then it's a half a package of pudding and pie filling. So I'm going to just take half of that out. I just have the vanilla. This recipe I got, oh goodness, I don't know how many years ago, from my good friend Sharon Bennett, and we've been friends for probably 50 years, and she gave me this recipe. And then it's 1 teaspoon of salt. So again, I'm just going to put all my dry ingredients there together. Now, what I like to do, the recipe calls for 2 teaspoons of yeast, 1 tablespoon of sugar, and 1/4 cup of warm water. I like to put that together so you can see here, see how nice and foamy that is? That makes you know that the yeast is working, and so I just mix it up and it's all incorporated well. So I never put like dry yeast into my bread. It's always mixed like that. And then it's 1 cup of warm milk, which again, I'll just add that all together.
So I have a question. If your yeast does not foam up like that,
then something's the matter with your yeast. If it doesn't do that, something's the matter with your yeast.
So throw out what you have and get a new,
yes.
Okay.
And then this is just 1 beaten egg, and I just like to add that in there too. So I put all of my wet ingredients there. I'm just gonna So now if you have this in your bread machine, then you could just go do something else and let the machine. It does the rising, the kneading. In about 45 minutes, you'll have some of the dough like I started off with when I rolled them out. And again, like with the noodles, you kind of keep that going, and pretty soon I'm going to get in there with my hands. Of course, I washed it before we started. And so you would get that going, you know, till you have everything pretty much incorporated in there. Cover it and let it rise a little bit, punch it down, and then knead it again for maybe another 10 minutes or so, and let it rise again. And then you would be ready to the point where I was when I rolled them out. And you can just cover it if you wanted to, like with some saran wrap or something, and we'll just let that go. And again, I would just let this go here for a while. So now I just want to show you how I roll them out. Again, I just put flour on your board, and you really don't even have to roll it if you don't want to. You can pretty much just, it's very, very pliable that you really could kind of do it just really by your hand. And again, you just kind of keep working with it. Even when I put the fillings on, you want to kind of make it kind of a rectangle, because when you roll it up, you'll see what I mean. So just roll it out as much as you can. I'm really not good. So really at this point, that's pretty good. And we'll go ahead and even it up as I put the toppings on. So now you just need some softened butter. And then of course you'll have the recipe, so I just 1/4 of a cup.
And this is real butter, not the spread.
Yes, real butter. A matter of fact, one of my friends I went to high school with put something on today telling what margarine was made of, and it has the same properties that paint does. She says, enjoy your margarine, everybody. And it's like, so everybody says, well, that's why I use butter. But yeah, this is butter. Just kind of spread it. And again, you want to kind of get it to the edge, because that will help when you go to seal up the edges too, if it has a little butter on it. So again, just, then you need about a cup of brown sugar. Just put that, and it doesn't matter if some falls out. See, I want to kind of keep working it so it's going to be a pretty much of a rectangle. And then cinnamon, just spread it all over. And you can, if you want to at this point, put some raisins in there. Pecans, walnuts, whatever you want, but we're just doing plain cinnamon rolls today. So then you just kind of start rolling it.
And I noticed you turned your
it's
thing
just
to make it longer.
to make it longer. And then I will, you'll see here, I kind of molded how I want it to be. A lot of times it's bigger in the center. So this is where that squareness comes in I was talking about, because you keep rolling, so you kind of want it. Just keep working it. Now I'll tell you another thing that's real good with this, where we are right now. Do you remember the those wreaths I used to make?
Yeah, the Christmas,
you can do the very
yes.
same thing, and this is the same. I'll just, before I cut, I'll just show you how you would do that. So again, you just kind of, so you want everything to kind of be the same width. So if you were going to make the ring the wreath I was telling you about, this is how Grandma, you kind of just put them in a circle like this, and push them together. And then you take your knife and you make like maybe every 2 inches, like half, all the way down, about that far out. And then you just take that and you turn it, and it just folds open. Then let it rise, and you have this big ring, and it's very nice and different. It's just different ways. But
and I remember you put like either candied fruit.
Yes, we would
or
put
something
candied
like that.
fruit,
Okay.
like the candied cherries in it too. Yeah. And so I'm going to do this into 12. So an easy way I always do it, I like do it in half. And then that way it's easier. Now I'm going to do 6. So like this is a little bit thinner here, so I will make that a little bit bigger there. So let's see what you have. That's what they look like. So then you just put them in your greased pan. And that's it. So then you just keep those and let those rise up. It takes maybe 45 minutes to 50 minutes. You let them rise up, and then you will bake them. So now this is some that I did a little earlier. So I let them rise, and just see here how nice and soft. And now I'm going to make the cream cheese frosting that we'll put on it. Now normally when I make it, I put the cream cheese frosting on when they're still kind of warm. So these have cooled down just a while, but it'll still be fine. Frosting, and the recipe calls for 2 tablespoons of softened butter and 4 ounces of, which is a half of cream cheese, and I usually always use the third lighter cream cheese, and that's what I have in here. You want to just mix those up, clean those up a little bit. It's a teaspoon. And this here, I don't mind using my dark vanilla in here because it just gives it another, looks good on the cream cheese. And it's about, I usually just start off with maybe about a half cup, 3/4 of a cup powdered sugar before I put a little bit of milk in it. So again, you can use whatever frosting recipe that you have. Oops, I'm making a mess. You got about a couple teaspoons of milk. Just use the. Just mix that in. And you could do this by hand too if you wanted to. Now I'm just going to add a little bit more powdered sugar until it gets to the consistency that I want.
So how do you get your icing not to get the little like balls of sugar? Just by beating really well?
Right, and you want to have your butter and your cream cheese about room temperature. It's kind of, a lot of times it's because your butter's too cold that you get those. So this should be pretty smooth.
It looks smooth.
So you can see you don't want it real thick, but just more than a glaze. I'll just I'll have a taste test here in a little bit. Just kind of. I always like to put my yeast, and I have a 1/4 cup of warm water, 2 teaspoons of the yeast, and 2 tablespoons of sugar. So I'm just going to go ahead and get that started getting foamy while we wait here. Then you need, it's about 2½ cups of flour. I'm just going to put that in here. And this is just regular all-purpose flour. A little teaspoon of salt. My birds are sounding happy. Can you hear them out there chirping away today? And a teaspoon of baking powder. Then you have a cup of buttermilk. And again, if you don't have buttermilk, a lot of times we don't. I just have regular milk here and about a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. And then another thing, when I have the buttermilk, and the recipe calls for soda, I always put my soda in the buttermilk. So this recipe calls for 1/2 teaspoon of soda. So I'm just going to put that in that. Let that sit there a minute. And then you need a 1/2 cup of shortening, and this is just all-purpose shortening. And then I have my pastry blender again, or you can just use forks, whatever, and just go ahead and get that cut in. So in here I have the flour, the baking powder, as well as the salt, and the half a cup of shortening. Can you smell that yeast?
Yes, yes, yes.
Just make like a little, go ahead and pour the yeast and the sugar and the water in there. And then you want to make sure you stir, because you remember I have that soda in there too with that cup. And then just pour that in. It's real simple, not too much hands-on time that you have to mess with. Make sure it's all nice and too bad. I'm just going to put a little flour, because you can see it's a little gooey, but I mean, this is how it is. And you want to just give it a couple kneads. To see just that little bit. Just kind of even it out here a little bit. So really, you could roll it out, and what I did on the other ones, I really just kind of patted it. So just, it's probably, you don't want it flat. I mean, you want them to be a nice. I just have a pint jar, and I just cut down in it. And just put them on your parchment paper, and let them. I covered it a little bit with some saran wrap and let them rise about an hour, and you saw what they look like. Like I said, I did those a little bit earlier, and we'll go ahead and see what they look like here in probably about another few more minutes. So I just took these out of the oven, and you can see how beautiful they are. And just kind of just on the top, just a little bit of butter. Kind of just makes them look a little bit more shiny. And there you are with your angel biscuits. Here. You can see how it's warm, but they're just very nice and tender and